Research director at Strathmore University has come out saying that Kenya's share of total world exports has dropped to 0.04%. This is from 0.12% 4 years ago. The trend is likely to worsen. We've seen manufacturers like Everready saying they expect to relocate to other destinations due to the high cost of doing business in Kenya, high energy costs, rising inflation. We've got the weakest shilling and political instability as we edge towards that election year. Is the government doing enough to help businesses retain their competitive edge in Kenya?
I think for the manufacturing sector, they've had quite a rough time, and you know, for that case, I don't think the government is doing enough. Even though you have to give credence to the government, you know, they have very few options. You know, some of the challenges the sector is facing are probably out of their reach, and some of the solutions are probably longer term rather than immediate.
Given the fact that manufacturers particularly are being hurt by the high cost of doing business in the country, which stocks would you be cautious about investing in at this stage?
Obviously, the manufacturing sector, we've seen oil prices going up. So if you're looking at, say, energy-intensive companies, so maybe the cement companies, would be cautious on that. Obviously, you'd have to look at the specifics of each. And also companies which import a good bulk of their raw materials, you know, for processing. The currency has weakened substantially, so that reduces their competitive advantage. And so from that point of view, I think we'd more be looking at the exporters rather than the manufacturers.
Specific stock picks on that front then?
Would probably say the agricultural stocks, tea, coffee exports, maybe Williamson Tea, Kapchorwa, Sasini. Kenya Airways is also another favorite of ours. You know, the bulk of its revenues are in dollars, and the dollar has weakened substantially. Earnings are coming up. Obviously, there's a rights issue coming up on that as well, but we don't think it will weigh down substantially on the stock going forward. You know, and also the defensive stocks. So the energy stocks, we're looking at Kenol Kobil, downstream oil marketer, Kenya Power and Lighting, so energy generally inelastic demand. So,
given the concern around the issues in the country at the moment with rising inflation and those that I've already cited, and especially the fact that the government recently decreased its growth forecast for 2011 to 4.2. Now, this is from an earlier projection of 5.7% last year. IMF is slightly more optimistic, though. It says it's expecting growth this year of between 5 and 5.4%. But given the fact that we have had these growth cuts for the year, would you be cautious about getting into any of the banks?
I think the banks, it's probably a mixed bag. We've seen some of the, like the domestic banks with sort of an international outlook. Kenya Commercial Bank has been one of them. We still remain positive on it. It has the regional strategy. The subsidiaries are starting to make profits. They also have room in terms of cost cutting. They raised capital last year. So a combination of all these factors still make us remain positive on that. Obviously, depending on the bank that we have and depending on their percentage of government holdings, we've seen interest rates going up. So if you look at the dealing book, some of the banks have actually been losing money on that as interest rates rise. So we'd be cautious on those, and we've seen today CFC Stanbic releasing results. 30% of their book is usually in government dealing, and that obviously impacted their non-interest income. And we think going forward that's going to happen. National Bank as well was negatively affected, released results recently. You know, but going forward, the economy generally remains buoyant, but with significant headwinds coming its way.
What are your expectations for the MPC decision next week, Tuesday?
We think we might see an interest rate rise, probably even 50 basis points. If you look at the IMF comments, it appears that demand in Kenya is generally rising a lot faster than they would probably want. And so the combination of policies would see the central bank building up reserves and potentially increasing the cost of credit to sort of reduce that. So we think the Monetary Policy Committee might look at that and raise that probably by another 50 basis points to 6.5%.
Let's take a look at one of the good news stories coming out of the stock market. Uchumi, which is planning to relist next week, Tuesday, says it's planning to enter into the Tanzanian market. Now, the company has managed to reduce its debt and improve its financial position and is continually able to pay back its creditors. So it's in a positive position at the moment. Would you be looking to buy into the stock when it reopens trade on Tuesday next week?
Obviously, it depends on which level it opens up. At between 12 and 15 shillings, we would probably still be positive on the stock. Obviously, if it goes beyond that level, we'll probably be having sell orders at that point. But obviously, the company has improved substantially. It's now, you know, it's in terms of profitability, it's expected to continue improving. Obviously, they benefited in the past from tax credits. So going forward, you know, as they start making profits, you know, that tax credit will sort of eliminated and they need to pay tax. But profit before tax, we expect that to keep on growing, and that remains positive for us. And obviously, as a market that they've been tackling, I think the strategy now is a lot more clearer and a lot more positive.
Now, two companies that are closing their books this week. We've got Jubilee closing its books today, and Housing Finance, which reported its results early in the week, closing tomorrow. Do you expect some increased activity around these stocks?
Yes, a little bit of activity, nothing much. You know, we've seen more activity around stocks, around the larger cap stocks. We might see a little bit of speculation just ahead of the books closure, but we don't expect very substantial activity on those two stocks.
Eric, if I could ask you your top stock pick for the day?
Well, not sure for the day, but I guess over the longer term we still remain positive. Kenal Kobil, Safaricom, and maybe the agricultural stocks and Kenya Airways.